May I too congratulate Bill Butler on bringing this matter before the Chamber. And I have to say that I found what he had to say both encouraging and perhaps inspiring would not be too strong a word. Drumchapel is an area where there have been problems over the years, and we know that. And in my experience, and coming from an area myself which had its problems, I know that in one's youth, if there is some diversion, some physical activity, some sport, it can help a very great deal. And the organisation of the Drumchapel Table Tennis Club is such an organisation because we have seen the numbers with the throughput of membership over the years, which is frankly spectacular, and the fact that they have achieved so much with a current membership of 400 is in itself very significant. I would congratulate them on the trophies which they have won, but of course it is so very much more important that the service which they provide to the youth in the Drumchapel area is made available, and made available what is clearly a very progressive and professional manner. When youngsters get involved in sport, they do not get involved in other activities which would probably find me wearing my other hat in full condemnatory flow. And that can only be a good thing, because they have got the opportunity not only to work off the high spirits that the youngsters inevitably have, but they are able to meet friends, have associates, and some of these friendships probably last for many years, if not indeed for all of their lives. And that has got to be a good thing. So it adds greatly to the social cohesion of any area. And I too would like to offer my congratulations and thanks to people like Terry McLernan, who with their commitment and dedication do so much for some of Glasgow's young people who otherwise would not, perhaps, have had the opportunity to engage in sport. This afternoon I had the pleasure of joining the youngsters for a brief table tennis session. It was one of life's more humiliating experiences. At least I was not quite as bad as Frank McAveety, but it nevertheless was thoroughly enjoyable. And speaking to some of the youngsters, it's so very, very obvious that they really enjoy their table tennis. And they are rather good at it, as we all discovered to our cost. I do not think that, as I speak to the audience, that there will be too many of us on the floor of this particular chamber who are ever likely, Deputy Presiding Officer, to be table tennis champions, although possibly I speak for myself and you perhaps have a knowledge of, and abilities in this direction that I don't have.
Chair cannot express an opinion on these matters.
I think that that is very wise. But I thought they were extremely good. They were extremely sociable, and this basically, at the end of the day, is surely what it is about. So can I say through you, Presiding Officer, to those involved, carry on the good work. Those who are providing the leadership, carry on providing that leadership. And to those who at the moment are simply enjoying the activities, look to the years ahead, and so that you can in time and in turn contribute to that leadership and give back to the Drumchapel community so much of what has been given to you.
Frank McAveety, followed by Kenneth Gibson.
Can I thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer, for giving us a chance to make a contribution. We've had 3 bills in a row, so I'd like to break that duck this evening in terms of the contribution about the Table Tennis Club. I think Bill Butler and the other contributors this evening have indicated the strength of acknowledgement in the chamber here about the work that's done by the club over the last 20 years in response to perhaps some of the challenges facing peripheral estates such as Drumchapel or the other parts of Glasgow, putting themselves together, developing from a very small idea. I'm sure they started, like many organisations, in very, very small premises and have grown in such a way in terms of the scale that they have now realised some of the aspirations in terms of the achievements that they've had. I think Bill's touched on 3 or 4 important themes, and they've been echoed by the contributions this evening. What I want to focus on is three areas that I think are lessons that we all need to learn in the chamber here, and hopefully the Minister can take forward as well in terms of emerging sports strategy in Scotland. One is that we should encourage as much access as possible to whatever sports that are available, and I think what's been demonstrated in the Drumchapel example is a willingness to see that all children have talents, all young people have a contribution to make, whether that's just for the sociable fun of the sport or whether there are talents and activities. As Bill mentioned, a number of us tested out our skills this afternoon, and I asked Terry that could he observe from any of the participants from the parliamentary group any skills that could be worth developing. I think from his knowing look, I realised that none of us will be getting a call in the next 24 hours from Terry. But what he was saying, though, is that he can spot very quickly a talented youngster who might have just come along for an evening along with their friends to see if they can then fast-track them through a development programme. And that's the second theme. So one is access, but the second theme is good coaches matter. And I think all of us can testify to that, whatever sports that we've been involved in, that individuals who show leadership, innovation and a willingness to be patient and supportive can make a difference to the potential that can be developed. And again, I think the example of Drumchapel is that where we put in place, some of it by accident rather than design, whether or not there's been enough support from the various sports agencies or the local authority or from the different agencies involved in government, I'm sure that will always be a debatable point. But I think the fundamental issue is that we should try and put in place some very, very good coaching opportunities so that people can develop. And I think the third lesson that's clearly from what Terry and his team have done over the years is they don't just hoard that knowledge. If you look at the experience of other sports, some individuals hoard that knowledge because they think that's the way in which they can continue to be successful. But if they move on, that skill and the expertise is therefore lost for that organisation or club. I think what Terry does, along with the rest of the individuals involved in the club, from the discussions I've had and from what Bill has said, is that they develop that in other young people. So the young boys and girls that come through into adulthood actually have a level of skills and experience that they then can develop in their own innovative ways as well. So we have good coaching, we have a willingness to let go when you need to let go, and more importantly, a recognition that youngsters do have every possibility if they're encouraged to do so. We had the experience in a recent event in Tollcross because of obviously the big commitment that we all have to make sure that Glasgow 2014 is successful. And I think Terry's staff and youngsters come across to the east end of Glasgow and demonstrated the kind of expertise that they have. And I think what that energised was a willingness amongst other parts of Glasgow that perhaps don't have the infrastructure that has been painstakingly developed over recent years to try and endeavour to have that. And I'm sure that Terry and his staff would be willing to encourage that across Glasgow. And that's why I welcome what Bill Butler has said about trying to roll that across other local authority schools within Glasgow and even beyond that. One word of caution I do have, and I recognise the aspiration that we all have to make sure 2014 is going to work. I'm not convinced that 2014 as a singular activity, either as an event or activities leading up to and beyond, will necessarily address the fundamental health inequalities that exist in the city. I think it could make a contribution to some of the debate and experience that we should have. And what I don't want is a debate to solely be about that. It should be about, and I'll finish on this point, the intrinsic worth of sport and the intrinsic value of participating in sport. And I think what the Table Tennis Club clearly demonstrate the experience that I've had with them is that they genuinely believe this is a sport that youngsters can enjoy. It's a sport that a lot of youngsters can access if given the right opportunity. And it's a sport that a lot of youngsters can continue into adulthood. If we get those three things right, we are starting to make some of the inroads into what I think Bill Kidd understandably identified about tackling the health issues in the city. And I think that's a real testament to the work. And along with other members, and I'm sure the club will have heard it already this evening, is that we commend the work that they do. And we would hope that there are many other Terry McLarnans and other clubs like this right across, not just Glasgow, but the whole of Scotland, because we think Scotland as a nation benefits from the activity and commitment that they give day in, day out. And good luck to the future for the club and all involved.
Kenneth Gibson.